It's v.h.s.x. What do you mean?
All right, everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're talking about a particular topic today, covering the illusion of skill in Dead by Daylight. In the background we have a little bit of 2v8 with Bjork, one of you guys from the Discord community, playing the 2v8. So appreciate you for playing the match as Spirit. So Dead by Daylight is probably one of the only multiplayer games where two players can, on paper, be equally skilled. But on the other hand, when you actually watch the gameplay, it says something completely different, right? So on one hand, you could say, oh, a killer got a 3 or a 4K, but then when you see how they play, they probably weren't really as good as they claim. And on the other hand, if you see survivors, like, they'll claim that they went on these long chases or even got these crazy escapes or clips. And then when you actually watch what the killer was doing or actually look at where they were in the map or something like that, a lot of the time it was just due to the like the strength of the map or the strength of the tile, or even with the palette density update, it's even because of that now. So I wanted to kind of break down like my sort of perspective on the game because of that. So let's begin obviously with the bigger culprit of the two, which is going to be the survivors, because a lot of the time you do hear and see very commonly that they think that they're actually a lot better than they really are. So when they do loop, you could say, quote unquote, with the killer, to them they think it's skill, to them they think it's really like this crazy experience that it took them to get here. But the truth is, a lot of the looping really isn't that much skill. It's just the map's RNG doing most of the work. So they can run to one pallet, then it connects to this window, and then it connects to another pallet, which connects to another window, and then it connects to another thing. And then it just keeps extending the chases, or even have like an exhaustion perk, like buying 10 full seconds of chase time because they sped off into a direction. And survivors will say, oh, I outplayed them, but half of the time they're just running the route that was already predetermined for them. And so the fact of the matter is, like, that's probably where a good majority of the ego comes from, because they're looking at the timer and saying, oh yeah, I totally did this thing, but did we take into account the map they're on, the killer they're up against, or even the mistakes that the killer was making in that process? Now, to bring it over to the killer side too, because I'm one of the biggest advocates for improving as killer. As you guys know, I've done killer coaching. I've even done match reviews for you guys in the community. I've also done, like, when I started out on this channel, I even did like match reviews for my own gameplay to improve and to show other people how they can play Ghostface better as well. And with that being said, let's just try to dive into that. So a killer player can probably load into a match and probably be doing extremely badly. But toward the end, because of the blunders of the survivors, they end up scraping up a 3 or 4K. And a lot of the time that really is due to the blunder, but they probably shouldn't have won the match, which is unfortunate to say, because there is a lot of things that go into playing killer in that sense. Tile knowledge, like pathing, resource management, chase predictions, which is only, and even game sense, you can call it, which is all obtained through hours of just playing the game and understanding, where people are trying to go, what they're trying to do. So when I'm playing like say Ghostface, like, I'm usually taking into account a lot of the behaviors I've seen over and over and over and over again, and therefore I can make predictions and be able to outplay certain things. Barring that I have the knowledge to do so, and also barring that they don't have a second chance ready to pop, of course. But there has been instances where there are people that will win games they probably shouldn't have, and there's also instances where a lot of survivor players have won matches that they really shouldn't have, and that is sort of how DBD works, I would say, right? And the running meme is obviously, oh, skill issue. You know what I mean? But a lot of the time it does boil down to that, and that's applicable to a lot of players, especially survivor players, and in some cases the killer players. So why is that, right? Like, why is it that DBD works like this? Like, why is it that, you know, on paper you look like you're really shining, but like the nuance really is what's sort of the key to this sort of point, is the fact that DBD is essentially 90% information, and most players really don't have it. So one of the biggest things with DBD is all about information. How much do you know about your character? How much do you know about the map? How much do you know about, you know, like what you're going up against in a lot of ways? So when killers are able to sort of like predict, because I've seen stuff like this before, like where, you know, some entitled survivor players will get really salty for a killer knowing where they are, and they'll just claim, oh, he's just stream sniping, and it's like, no, it's just called game sense. Like, they, you know, a lot of the time people probably don't even know you're streaming, or never looked it up in the first place, and they're just playing the match. Like, they're just doing their thing, and they just kind of know, right? And on the other hand, like, you know, in some cases with even survivors, like, they're able to probably counter or dodge a certain player, do a certain thing because they've gone against a killer enough times to be able to do it. And in a lot of cases, even in my own matches, because I know a lot of people like to say that tunneling is an exploit. Believe it or not, you know, there are people that out there that do believe that. The fact of the matter is, it's counterable. I've gone against people that have gone against tunneling time and time again, that they've been able to counter it by not getting spotted, by being able to survive in chase, to being able to have their teammates working on the objective to counteract the fact that I'm trying to gain pressure in some way, shape, and form. So that is how it goes, right? And even furthermore with Survivor, like when they are able to be chased and hold their own, that is information over time, hours upon hours of understanding spacing, timing, like under doing all those things, because there are good Survivor players out there. They're just, I wouldn't just say that there's many, but there's definitely a lot out there. So your skill really is important in a game like this, right? But one of the illusions of DBD, of skill in DBD, is that your personal performance can sort of define the match's outcome. And I think that's applicable to both survivors and killers. Like, you can be probably one of the best players at your character, and then you can still end up losing a match for some kind of circumstance that you just could not have seen coming. Like, you can be like the best you can be at say Wraith or something, or even Ghostface or Skull Merchant or whatever killer you want to pick. But if you are on a map like Garden of Joy, it's gonna be a hard time, right? Because there's 100,000 pallets, they all connect to each other. The main building is ridiculous. You didn't bring bamboozle, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's situations like that where you just end up in an unwinnable situation because of a map, or even because of perks, right? Like, you can end up going against a Swift with gen speed stacks and stuff like that, or just going against a bunch of solo queues that can gen rush. Like, there are just circumstances that you simply cannot control. And on the other hand, like, you know, as much as people like to bitch and complain about solo queue, that is also something that is based off of things that are out of your control, and does not really mean that you necessarily are bad at the game, even though you could be. But like, for those people that are good at chase and end up just getting, like, their teammates end up just getting like folded, that's really not your fault, because it's your teammates just were not able to hold their own. That's really not your fault. And it's not the killer's fault either. Like, they're just able to counteract the fact that they're bad. So say, for example, somebody always has that story where they had a game where they looped the killer for like these 2 minutes straight, still lost because their teammates just, like, the second that they broke chase or something like that, they still like and they went after anybody else and they still all died. It's because like only one person can actually hold their own while the rest of them are horrible. And that's just how it works. You know what I mean? And even with teams, like, if your teammate decides to DC, throw, or anything like that, it might end up leaning the game back into the killer's side. Now, let's also talk about outplays, right? Like, you could say that there's a lot of outplays that you can go in and kind of like that can really get you that W. But a lot of that is also misplays, right? So when killers are able to kind of like outplay a survivor's sort of you know, play, you could say, it's usually a mistake on the survivors. Now I think it's a little different with survivors in some sense, because like when you're able to like sort of dodge an ability, it really does not require that much effort. And I think that's also what kind of gives people an ego, I think, on survivors, the fact that they think that like holding a direction when an ability goes up, like a flame pillar or like Pyramid Head's like ability or something like that, they like to think that it's like, oh man, I did this crazy thing, and it's like, no, you just kind of, even like with Chucky, like we see it too, like they just tend to like holding, like moving to the side is not really that crazy. So yeah, but that's how it goes, right? Now I do see that the sort of misplay can be very catastrophic on the killer's end, especially when it comes down to you know, maybe chasing a little too long, or you know, maybe like just being out of position in a lot of ways, or not like maybe trying to play way too far into your perks and things like that. And that also can lead into sort of like the matches where it kind of seems unwinnable in a lot of ways. So here's a couple of other things that add on to my idea of like the illusion of skill, is the fact that there's so much RNG that exists in the game. So, you know, we could talk about the spawn RNGs, we could talk about totem RNG, gen like placement RNG, items are random because you don't know what they're bringing. The map, you don't know what you're gonna get. The survivors, you don't know which ones you're really gonna get. And even on Survivor, it's like the other way around too. Like you can get any kind of map, you can go against any kind of killer, your teammates can be anybody. You know what I mean? And I think that it's very tricky to say that you can be like the top level sometimes because of just certain things that kind of occur. Or it's very difficult to climb that ladder because of the randomness. But I am not saying, because you know, because I really want to touch on this, I'm not saying that skill does not exist, because it does. But I think that it's not within like the sort of like flashy chase clips 360 or insane mind games you post on TikTok. I think that the real skill that DBD offers is in the less sort of like flashy aspects of the game that I usually participate in when playing Ghostface, because Ghostface in general is not a very flashy character. And it is like reading pathing, like, you know, predicting movement, knowing who to chase, when to chase, and who not to chase, identifying the win conditions, manipulating like the survivor like sort of pallet drops and movement, you know, controlling the proximity of gens, understanding like the perks and stuff like that, what they do, your abilities and things like that. And obviously even on Survivor, it's like pathing as well, like spacing, when to drop, where to drop, you know, things like that, understanding the tiles. All these things kind of go in conjunction. And that is sort of why DBD is what it is. So what is the takeaway? And DBD's ultimately is about skill, but not in a way that we always think it is. But let me know what you guys think. I think I was probably a little bit yappy in this one, but still, let me know what you guys think, and I appreciate you guys watching. And shout out to Bjork for joining me for the 2v8 match. Well, I wanted to go ahead and take some time out to thank all my members from Patreon with Pro King 101, my YouTube members, Majora Jeff, Endire, Evil Peachy YT, Zero Mocker, Christian, Hexdev, and Crow Vader, and for my Twitch subscribers, Cake is the Road, Danica 2002, Final Girl _ Bunny, Acklefin, Chili Cinderace, Zero Mocker, Ginsburg, Johns 117 _ Lovely Ghost TTV, Jar TTV, Zazaboo, and Crow Vader. Just wanted to thank you guys. And if you also want to have your name read off at the end of every video, make sure you join on one of these platforms to get one of those perks, as well as the other perks you get. So appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much.